begin. Okay, today is Monday, July 8th, 2024. We have a quorum, so we will begin our meeting at 6:32 p.m. All right. First, has everyone received the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
All right. Can we accept them by common consent, or are there any corrections or amendments to be made? All right, let me just back up. Please mute your microphone unless you are speaking. Any guests in attendance, will you please introduce yourselves in the chat? Let us know your organizational affiliations if you have any. And please provide the contact information. Again, to assure that we have adequate time to hear from all commissioners, guests are asked to not to speak during the ACP meeting, with the exception of invited speakers, though they are welcome to add their thoughts and comments in the chat. Also, to the commissioners, we ask that if you should have questions or comments, that you would limit them to 2 at a time. And once you have raised 2 questions or combination questions or comments, will you please go to the back of the queue if there are others waiting to share their thoughts, so that we will have time to hear from everyone. So we have approval of draft minutes from both June 10th and June 17th. And so let's go back. Are there any corrections or amendments to any of those, to either sets of minutes? If not, can we approve by common consent? All right. With no objection, we'll approve those. So let's now go to the meat of our meeting. Do we have the councilman with us, or a representative?
Hi, this is Marisa from Councilmember Jawando's office. He should be joining very shortly.
All right, very good. Does very shortly mean we should go to another agenda item, so that he will be here in, kind of shortly, or in a few moments? Or what do you recommend, Marissa?
I think just if we wait just a minute or so, he should be joining.
All right, is everyone okay with that? All right. While we're waiting, I want to apologize for my communication gaffe. I went on vacation with my family for a couple of weeks, much needed vacation. We were in the Gulf Shores, and I left my laptop home, but even my cell phone went missing, and so it was discovered today at Enterprise. And so hopefully I'll have it soon. But I sent you all a backup mobile phone if you're trying to reach me. But man, in 2024, when you lose your cell phone, it's like losing half of your brain, right? I couldn't call anyone but 911 and my mom. And so that'll soon be addressed. The good people at Enterprise are going to spirit the phone to me by the end of the week, after I pay the fee. So yeah, but you have my backup mobile if you need to reach me in the meantime.
Hello.
Hello, Councilman. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you well. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you are feeling the air conditioning in your vehicle.
I am. I got it on, and I appreciate you bearing with me. I'll do this so you can see my Coney seal. But yeah, I am have an event right after this, so I thought I had to show up at that event. But you got my full undivided parked attention.
Well, we understand that you are a busy man and you're working hard for the county. So thank you for your time. So we sent to your office some questions, a set of questions, after some thorough research was done by members of the committee. Committee members, we should all have those questions. Would you like to do a round robin of asking questions? I don't have to be the only one moderating. All right. So let's go to question 1. Would any of you like to take the floor to ask that question?
Sure, I'm happy to start since I was chairing that subcommittee. My name is Eva Quitman. I'm a Gaithersburg resident. And the first question for the councilman is, a community's trust in its police is essential to public safety. How will the Freedom to Leave Act improve trust between our diverse community and MCPD?
Well, thank you, Eva, and thank you for all of your leadership in serving on this commission. This is my first time before the ACP. I've been before the PAC quite a bit, but under the new name and constitution, this is my first time. So thank you for your service. And this is just an important set of issues. As some of you might know, I was involved in the introduction of the legislation that created the PAC, the predecessor of the ACP, and very engaged on these issues on the council, but also in my career as a civil rights lawyer and a public policy professional. And just to be clear, I know you all know this. You know, I introduced the STEP Act, almost a couple of years ago now. We got an attorney general opinion that we saw it, saying that components of it related to secondary traffic stop offenses were preempted by state law. The part that remains is the Freedom to Leave Act, which is around consent searches, which are a kind of a part of that. A lot of them happen in vehicles or persons in vehicles, but they also could happen on the street as well. So just wanted to make sure we all had that context. But it's a great question about how the Freedom to Leave Act is aimed at improving trust between our diverse community and MCPD. That's really the core of why I introduced the bill. If you think about, I'll never forget, and some of you may remember this, obviously President Biden's been in the news quite a bit the last week or so for things probably none of us want to see him in the news for, but a couple years ago, 2 years ago at the State of the Union, he spent about 5 minutes talking about the talk that African-American parents have with their children about what to do, when you're in the vehicle, to put your hands on the wheel, to respond, to not, all the things that are related and are connected to not only oral history, but generational trauma of interactions with law enforcement and the beginnings of that system. And from its East Coast roots of slave catching in the South and busting unions in the North and using to enforce terror, and how it's grown up and how the practices and tactics have evolved over time. We had very compelling testimony, which I hope all of you watched. If you haven't, please watch it, back in February, where you had some people who had never stepped foot in the council building before, who testified to their experience with these types of stops, which the data, our own data, this is not disputed, disproportionately happens to Black people. About half the time, disproportionately Black men are asked for these consent searches. And I've often shared when I worked as an AmeriCorps member for the Montgomery County Police Department in 99, 2000, coming out of high school, I wanted to be a police officer, and I lost my best friend to gun violence in Briggs Cheney, and have a lot of respect. It was a great year. I met some great mentors, friends of mine who are still mentors to this day, including Daryl McSwain, who's the Montgomery County Parks Police Chief. Now, he was then Lieutenant McSwain at the 3rd District Police Station. That year when I was working there, I had cornrows. I was 19 years old. I got pulled over 10 times by Montgomery County Police. And I was asked multiple times to have my vehicle searched. I consented because I didn't think I had a choice, which also was borne out in the data. The vast majority of people, particularly because of the power dynamic and fear of consequences, consent. So that even though you technically right now, even without this bill, you have the right under law and constitution to say no, we know that doesn't happen. And there's reasons for that. And so if you're talking about improving trust, I'm trying to just answer your question. The reason this isn't a good practice is, one, because it erodes trust. And on our own data, the vast majority, 90+ % of people who are asked to consent search, nothing is found. Those are people who are disproportionately Black, disproportionately people of color, from communities where they leave that experience not feeling good, having sat on the curb, having felt like someone thought they did something wrong. And it's not, it doesn't build trust. It does the opposite. It erodes trust. it's also not effective. We don't find from the now Chief Yamada testified a few months ago that of 205 recent stops, they found one gun, and the data is similar for these consent searches. It's a very low recovery rate, and in fact, in jurisdictions that have gotten rid of consent searches, and there's several, they've actually seen their recovery rates go up and racial disparities go down. And so it's a good policy, not just for the trust building, and I'm probably getting ahead on some of these things. I'll talk more about that, but it's also a good policy for officer time and producing higher quality searches that will yield the things we all want. We want guns and drugs, and we want good police work leading to removing those things from the street. We don't want this type of, which in many ways can be random.
Thank you so much, Councilman. And thank you for sharing your own testimony. A brief follow-up question to that is, I know you spoke about your own experience with having endured consent searches and how ineffective and inefficient they can be in the county. Will you fight to ensure that, this bill is a complete ban on consent searches, if that is what you and what the county believes to be the most effective policy decision?
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind it's the most effective policy decision. I'm not just making it up. I'm looking at the entire state of Connecticut, other jurisdictions that have done this for years that have seen and reported on improvement in both less racial disparities and higher recovery rates. And there's multiple jurisdictions that have shown that, and we can share those studies with you if you haven't seen them or those reports. That being said, I'm not going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I know that change is hard. We as humans don't like it. The pastor knows that. We don't like to do things differently, so I'm hopeful that we can get a complete ban on this. And again, this is something that every person who's asked has the right to say no. This is just taking away the power imbalance and the deep pressure and trauma that this causes for some. There was an Uber driver who testified, who I'd never met, didn't know who he was, at the hearing about this, and how he just started crying and talking about how this impacted him, and he just didn't know what was going on. And why he was being asked to be searched. And again, our data bears out that this is disproportionately done to communities of color, particularly Black communities, and it's not effective. And one of our professors who led the investigation into Ferguson and wrote that report and has done a whole bunch of other things, Professor Christy Lopez, who runs the Criminal Justice Center at Georgetown Law School, testified that not only does it do all those things, it also does not encourage officers to hone their investigative skills. When you have a catch-all, you can just ask anyone to search anybody. It actually disincentivizes honing your skills to actually lead to good searches. In addition to, you have a wide array of searches that can happen under the law already. If you have probable cause to think that a crime's been committed, or you think someone's carrying a weapon, you're allowed to search already. So long answer to way of saying I'm going to try to have the bill as introduced, but I think, we have to compromise if that's where colleagues want to go. But I do think that this is a no-brainer in the sense that the data is there to support this change.
Thank you so much. I'll pass it off to Mr. Blair to ask the next question.
Mr. Blair,
You're
will
on
you
mute.
please
You're on
turn
mute,
on
sir.
your microphone?
Good evening, Councilman.
Good
Good to
evening.
see you.
You too.
During the February the 27, 2024 public hearing, witnesses testifying in opposition to the Freedom to Leave Act seem to have significant misconceptions about what the bill would cover or its impact. What are your plans to help ensure that the diverse community understands the scope and expect impact of the bill?
Yeah, thank you, Arthur. Good to see you, and hope your wife's doing well. This is something I care about a lot. You know, one of the things policing, there are a lot of things that are like this, but policing is one of the most, where depending on who you are and where you live and your background, it's experienced totally differently. And in a community as diverse as ours, that is also the case. So, you know, many of us, or it's not only differently, it's intersected and complex, right? You may have good experiences or bad experiences in some communities. But so I think that these conversations are a part of that. I think the ACP, and I met with the PAB last week, who I think intends to make make some sort of recommendation on this. I think that you all have a role in helping to get a perspective and facts and data out there and continue the conversation. I also think just the introduction of the bill has created a lot of conversation around this. I've talked to colleagues and others in the community. We named it Freedom to Leave just to emphasize the point that you are free to leave. If nothing else happens, we want more people to know that if you're asked to be searched, you do not have to consent to that. Now, there's been Know Your Rights trainings for years, and I've been a part of them with the NAACP and others. Again, that has its limitations because of the power imbalance, and we know from data that most people don't say no because they feel like they can't. But I think that's a conversation starter. I think the testimony you heard from folks who had experienced this is something that needs to be shared. It's why I've asked all of you to look at it if you haven't seen it. I also think we need to get more out there about what's the most effective way to get what we want, which is safe communities. And not every practice is contributing to that. Some are actually working in the opposite direction, or as far as either wasted time or opportunity cost, or working to erode trust in certain communities, or certainly not build it. And I think this is one of those policies. I think we can. I really am trying to get out, as I said earlier, the stories and the data around states like Connecticut who have already done this. And I've talked to our new police chief. Look, we have to be in dialogue about this. This isn't an us versus them. This is an us and us conversation. You know, we delegate the power to our police to keep us safe. And they're members of our community as well. And we set the rules as a community through law and policy of what we want that delegated authority, which is immense. No one else has the authority we give police to take life in defense of other life or the lives of themselves, or to detain and deprive of liberty, which is what we're talking about here. And that is an immense power that needs to have the appropriate safeguards on it. And I think this is one of those. So, you know, I think just sharing the stories, getting it out there as much as possible about who's been impacted by this, and also really leaning into, look, I understand not everyone's going to understand this in the way that maybe I understand it, or a person of color, or someone who's experienced this understand it. That's okay. But if we try to have empathy, and then if we look at the data, that not only is it having a personal and human toll, it's also not effective. I think those are ways that you can hopefully bridge some of these gaps around how we want our police to spend their time in pursuit of making sure all of us are safe.
Let me follow with one question. On February the 27th, people who seem to have opposition, some of the people who had opposition to the bill, seem to think that this bill rather, is taking away a tool of law enforcement. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think I've spoken to this a little bit, but I'll just put a finer point on it. Again, this is something legally you can say no, right? But we know that we've had someone testify, another professor, I think from American Law School, testified on the research that really that's a false choice because of the power imbalance that in the dynamic, you know, to a person with a gun outside your window, you know, the likelihood that you're going to say no, considering generational trauma for certain communities, who's asked this question the most. So one, it's not really a choice. Two, the data shows it's not effective. Our data, national data, all show the same thing, that it's not an effective practice. It actually the opposite. In jurisdictions that have done this, have banned consent searches. They have a higher recovery rate of contraband and less racial disparity. I just can't emphasize that enough. And that, so even if it is a tool, and I won't even just, there are a lot of tools, there's good tools, bad tools. I'm sure before the cave people figured out the wheel, they figured out some squares, they tried to do a square version that didn't work very well. This is a tool that is not working, and is actually having harm. And so I won't disagree that it's a tool, but I just think it's not an effective tool, and it's creating harm and eroding trust. And again, to Professor Lopez's point, who with the Ferguson Report and runs the center at Georgetown, it's actually encouraging a laziness, not in the analysis and the investigatory skills that are needed to actually lead to good searches and seizures. And so I think for all those reasons, it is not taking away of something that's helpful. It's removing something that's harmful, and that is actually not an effective tool or practice.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Would anyone like to take number 3? Francisco?
Thank you. Some members of the community say that they are concerned about the impact of the Freedom to Leave Act on police morale at a time when crime continues to rise in the county and MCPD faces staffing and recruitment challenges. What would you say to those who may perceive the bill to show a lack of confidence on micromanagement of, or a slight to police officers?
Thank you, Francisco, for the group. I know these are collective questions. Thank you for asking that question. It's a really important one. I am extremely focused on staffing and recruitment and building of morale, not only in the police department, but across government, which is a real challenge right now across all government agencies, but particularly in public safety and, in policing. I introduced the Community Informed Police Training Act, which was a partnership with Montgomery College that created 30 hours of additional training that our officers now go through after they finish the academy on community policing, communication. It also provides a direct line into the 650 plus criminal justice students at Montgomery College who are from this community and reflect the diversity of the community, and show them that we are on the cutting edge of being a department that is continuously improving, which is what you want. And so I think the question actually is, I challenge the premise of the question. If someone wants me to be better at my job and do something and remove something that's ineffective and that's causing harm in certain segments of the community, I want to make that change so that I can be better and do better, and that more people want to be a part and affiliated with law enforcement, whether it's cooperating, becoming officers themselves, working in the crime lab. That's the goal. That's how you get people to go into law enforcement, the right diverse set of people, by showing we're willing to change systems that have not produced good results. And so I think you could say that about any reform or any continuous improvement, that if you're doing it, it's saying, well, we don't like you. No, this is saying we like you and we want you to be even better. As I said, some of my biggest mentors are members of this department or have been members of this department. This is not about individual officers. This is about a system and a tactic that has grown up over time to produce inequitable results and ineffective results. And I think we need to be, if you ask Chief Yamato, who I've spoken to, and actually I'm helping them recruit at HBCUs and other institutes. I had an hour-long discussion a couple of weeks ago with the head of recruitment for MCPD about how to get them into more diverse and different and better rooms. And I'm willing to do that because I believe that, we have a commitment to continuous improvement, and this is part of that process. So, I think this is really this, along with the Community Informed Police Training Act, this is not a personal slight. This is about getting better. And I think we want to be continually getting better in everything that we do, particularly when we're doing things which all of us do sometimes, that don't work or ineffective or that are harming people either intentionally or unintentionally. And I think that's what this is about. And we have to be able to have those conversations at the same time. We can support and expand recruitment. And I think we use it as a recruiting tool to say, look, we're on the cutting edge of doing something that's most effective, that reduces racial disparities, that's why you should join this department. That's how this should be used. It should be embraced. And don't just take my word for it. One of the, chief proponents of this bill and this policy is the former chief of police for Salt Lake City for over 10 years. And he works with the Center for Policing Equity. His name is, oh gosh, Marissa, what's his name?
Burbank. Scott Burbank.
Yes, there you go. So we can give you his information if you guys or point you to his testimony. But this is not just, there are law enforcement who see the value in this. And again, change is hard, but I think it's all about how you talk about this. This is about improving so that we can have better community relations, better engagement, better recruitment. This is a tool to that, not a tool to say we're bad.
All right, thank you. Francisco, is there a follow-up, or to any council members, there a follow-up for that question? If not, we'll go on to question number 4. Do we have a volunteer? All right, John.
Hello, Councilman. Thank you for being with us today. I appreciate the time.
Good to see you.
Okay. Before I ask a question, I had taken the Citizens Academy, and this kind of comes in with this question. And they had given a presentation regarding searches and how they were able to discover weapons, and some of the people selling drugs in Loudoun County were going to the Bronx, New York, getting compartments hidden in their car, and they were finding drugs, and they were lucking up on it. And I'd asked a question, which is kind of in line with this question here, regarding, they gave us stats on how many people they were able to pull over and find illegal things stashed in their car. And I asked, how many people did you pull over that didn't have anything? And they couldn't answer that question. So this question here is, the police department contends that consent searches are valuable to law enforcement. And we want to know what data is available on the seizure of illegal drugs or weapons as a result from consent searches.
Yeah, thank you, John, for that question. It's one of the reasons, core reasons I introduced this bill. I had my staff several years ago do a analysis of all our stops, traffic stops in general. There are 37,000 traffic stops last year. But I actually don't know the total number of searches conducted. That's a question I've asked of general searches. Again, there's a lot of reasons you can search. If you have probable cause, there's a lot of other reasons besides consent that you can search. But we know consent is used quite often. We did get data on consent searches last year. It's important let me first reiterate that traffic stops in general very rarely lead to the recovery of contraband. And in Montgomery County, 1 of 205 traffic stops, less than 0.5%, lead to the recovery of a firearm. That was testimony on December 4th to the Public Safety Committee by MCPD. There were 37,000 traffic stops last year. Again, we're trying to get the number of searches, total searches, so we know what the denominator is. But a big part of this bill, which we haven't talked about much yet, it's a half of the bill is about data collection around stops. And so we want to make sure that we're getting the right data so we can be informed in what we're doing too. So that's half of this bill. Why people are stopped, what was the nature of it? There's a number of things in the bill that we currently aren't collecting that we would have to collect. And that's important to make better decisions. In terms of the number of consent searches, I was told by the department, these are their numbers, not mine, that since they started using the new consent search form, was just started February of last year, of 23, where you give someone a form to sign in some circumstances. But even that has been sporadic. The majority of consent searches are given verbally, right? So you can imagine if it's a verbal consent search and there's not a record, there are other searches that are happening where there is no record given, right? It's not like the community member is writing the report. So this number is probably a low number, I would suspect. But of the ones that were documented, there are 268 consent searches last year. And as part of those, of the 268, there were 10 firearms recovered, 2 controlled substances, one identity theft, and one theft from auto, some other item that was stolen from an auto. That was the numbers from last year, which again is consistent with the, let's just take the 10 firearms. That means 264 of the 274, nothing was found, in that sense. And again, there's a lot of reasons. If you have a reason to search, that you think a crime is being committed, we want that search to occur, and there's ways to do that. And that's why I think it's important to know what the total number of searches is too, because there are a lot of searches that are happening. I mentioned the Portland example, and I'll make sure Marisa shares this data that we have with you. I mentioned Connecticut, but I also want to mention Portland, Oregon, which is the one that I think was just posted. So after they banned consent searches because they deemed that they weren't effective, they saw their recovery contraband, this number we're just talking about, which we all care about. They saw that go up. They recovered more contraband when they banned consent searches, because again, they were more focused. They were based on more police information. It wasn't just a hunch. And in Connecticut, the same thing, because of the racial profiling statistics. They also, and I know you're going to ask that. I'm getting ahead. I'm getting way ahead on your next question. But the short answer is those are the numbers we have. We've asked for some additional data related to the total number of searches, all types of searches. But last year we have 268, which I think is low. Of that 268, I'm trying to find this number, Marisa, but if you have it, I might. Oh, here we go. Nearly half of those, or six, I think something like, Marisa, do you have the numbers of how many were verbal versus how many were the paper? Do you have that number? I don't want to give the wrong number.
I'll look at it.
Okay, and she'll put it in the chat, but the vast majority were verbal. It's just something to note, which I think is its own issue as well.
All right, we have Terry Walsh with a question or comment.
Hi, Councilman. I think you remember me from basketball.
I do.
I hope your event is a basketball event inside tonight. So thank you so much for spending time to talk to us. You're right. Much of what you quoted had to do with question 5 and 6. So my question is kind of a follow-up. When you talked about the data, what can we do to help support you, the council, the community, and the police to be accountable for the data? I heard you say a lot of the gaps are there in the data, and the old saying, garbage in, garbage out, right? So what can we do? What should we do? Because if we're getting skewed data in one way or another, there may be some controversy around that. So what thoughts do you have on that, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. It's good to see you. And my event is outside. It's actually the launch of the it's the opening of the Luminosity or whatever, like the dinosaur thing at Montgomery Mall. So they have it's a good thing for kids. So it opens tonight, but hopefully I'll be very quick in my remarks. So one of the things I'll say is the data is bad, even with the data that we have. So that's one thing to remember, right? Like we don't even have all the data, and it's not good as far as disparities and recovery rates. So we need to collect more and learn more, and we should lean into that. In any other part of government or the corporate world, anywhere, data is crucial to understanding what is happening and how to improve performance and outcomes. And we have to lean into that. And this is one of the things where I've had a lot of agreement with the police department and leadership, including the current chief. We have not invested enough and spent enough time, both human capital and technology. We have invested the money, but the technology hasn't caught up yet as far as their new records management system, which they're working on now. But in actually not only collecting, because we collect a lot, but analyzing and using the data to improve performance and to understand. In some ways we're very sophisticated. Like, we know where shootings have happened, and we deploy resources based on hotspots, and we do some other things. But in this area, and like constitutional policing and improving community trust, we have not leaned into it. And in the way that, and we're not unique in that way. I don't think there's a lot of jurisdictions that I think in some ways we're probably further along than some. But a county of our size, of who we are, our diversity, we need to be leading into this and leading, not just kind of trailing the play, to use a basketball analogy, right? And as I mentioned, of the 200 some odd individual searches, 113 were of Black individuals, about half. And that's on perfect timing. Risa put that in the chat there. Vast majority were African Americans, disproportionate to, and again, the vast majority of those, nothing was found. And so you think about what happens with those people when they go home, and how they feel about the community. So I would say your question was kind of how can you help? One, make sure we get these data provisions passed in the bill. Two, make sure it's publicly reported, which it requires, and that we have sessions in public safety at the council and at the ACP and the PAB to review the data and go over what are you doing with this? How are you using it to improve performance or to change these numbers, right? It's not acceptable to just say, we accept that these racial disparities have to exist. No, there's things we can do about them, and there's other places that are doing it. Let's do the research into places that are doing it. Let's try different things. No one's saying they have the only answer or that one thing is going to solve it, but we're going to have to do multiple things at the same time. And a big part of that is not running away from the data, but being eager to look into it so that we can say, okay, yeah, we made improvements, and be just in celebrating just as much when we make improvements and say, okay, how do we keep that going? I think we have to have that type of relationship with the data, not like let's cut it in a way that doesn't look as bad, or let's not collect it all the way, or and again, I think the police department, the chief, one of the things I asked him about was, how do we get better data? And he was like, this is a priority for me. We need to make sure. And we need to make it easier for officers because they want this too. They want to know what they're doing and the system they're participating in is leading to good results. And I think that's part of the frustration that happens there too. We need to make it easy for them to do it as far as the technology. And we need to make it clear that it's an expectation. And so I think the other thing we can do, last thing I'll say, and I've been talking to folks about, was more, we've been spotty on body worn camera footage review. And I think when you have 268 consent searches, it's possible to review those in the year, to have someone, either with the help of AI, look at what is happening in these types of searches. You're not going to be able to review 37,000 personally, but AI can help with some of that going forward. But we do need more capacity to review footage, not just to find there's something wrong, to find out what's good, and to just improve performance in general. And I think that's something that we also need to be looking at.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman, approximately how much more time do you have with us before your event?
I have about 20 minutes.
Okay, great. So it looks like you have touched on questions 5 and 6, and you even talked a good bit about data. I want to go back to the group. Are there what questions would you like to ask in the interest of time between the remaining questions, or your thoughts? Should we pull out so that we can make best use of the last 20 minutes that we have with Councilman Juando? Francisco?
Yes, thank you very much. And I just want to jump to question number 8, which focuses on the number of consent searches, which is a very it's a very small portion of all the traffic stops. If you compare to the traffic stops, we're only talking about 0.66% of all traffic stops, which in my mind addresses the issue of a useful investigative tool. We're talking at a fairly significant number of stops and of searches. And again, as you mentioned, Although Blacks and Hispanics appear to be not less likely to be consensual than those of whites, consensual searches of Blacks and whites still represent about 80% of all consensual searches. So I think there's a big issue here. But given that the fact that the consent searches represent such a small fraction of all traffic stops, what impact do you expect the Freedom to Leave Act to have in terms of both RESJ goals for the county?
Yeah. Thank you, Francisco, for those points and the question. And I know Marissa's been putting in the chat some of the other data, like Fayetteville, North Carolina, Portland, Connecticut. There's a number of places that have moved in this direction and seen good results. It's an important question. One, we need to understand the total number of searches, because there is data nationally that suggests that consent searches are used for searches are used 90% of all searches. So 90% of all searches nationally generally have been consent searches. So just let that settle in. Now, traffic stops and searches are two different things, right? Because most traffic stops do not yield a search, right? So we're just talking about so the correct end number is the universe of searches. And we need to know that. Like, and I have found in our data, not just police data, but almost everything, because of our size, 1.1 million people, our diversity, we tend to be right in the mean of most things. Health disparities, policing data, housing. We just because of our size and diversity, we tend to be right there. We might be a little better, a little worse in some categories. So I really want to know, at least on the data we have, how many searches have been conducted in those traffic stops, and what's that in? What's that number? I don't have that number. We need that number. But even let's say the 268 or whatever number is not as high as a percentage wise of all the searches. That's still several hundred people a year that are disproportionately people of color that are experiencing this in their communities for something that is not yielding a benefit or result to the community. You know, those are, I think, as a civil rights lawyer, our protections often are designed for the minority, for the few. That's what a protection is for, and especially when it has this level of disproportionality. The other thing is we need to look at this in the context of the larger set of work. You know, I talked about earlier, like the Community Informed Police Training Act, the use of force bill I didn't mention, but that I authored with colleagues. There's other forms of reform, reimagining that are in process, have taken place. But I do think this one will disproportionately have an impact, because it'll get us thinking differently about how we approach search, right? You know, one of the things that this bill doesn't address are Terry searches, like stop and frisk, right? There's where you can search somebody right now because and you may have seen the data on this in New York. There were 900,000 people searched during the period, and in very rarely, 90 plus some odd % of the time, nothing was found. You had one guy they featured in the New York Times who had been searched like 12 times in a year in his community. Stopped and frisk, and a stop and frisk is different from a search in that it is only supposed to be to see if you're carrying a weapon, right? You know, it's a pat down, right? As opposed to a exhaustive search, like let me go in your pot, check everything out. And so those are still happening and not counted in this number, right? And I think this type of, if we were to create a policy and saying, no, we don't think this is effective, and it's disproportionately happening to certain members of our community, the data shows it's not yielding what we want, and we make this change, I think it will have a reverberation in other types of stops and searches to make us say, hey, maybe we should have, let me make sure I really have an investigative reason to search this. Let me hone my skills in such a way that I'm not just gonna just rely on, hey, can I search you? And so I think it could have an outsized impact. And again, you saw that in other places. You know, as I think some of the data Marisa posted, that in Rhode Island and in Connecticut, where you saw overall racial disparities in traffic stops, not just consent searches. In Connecticut, the overall racial disparity in stops went down as a result of this policy change. So I think, because if you think about why a stop happens, it's like, okay, you could stop anyone at any time almost for any traffic violation. I mean, all of you are drivers, or you know drivers, you're going to veer into another lane. You're not going to stick. Something's going to happen. If you follow someone long enough, you could stop them. The question is, when you stop them, who are you asking to search? And will you do that stop if you know you can't just randomly ask to search somebody? We've seen that has had an impact on the behavior in other places. So I think, though it's it might seem like a relatively small person, I would still say, you know, just under 300 people a year is not small. That's having an impact on people. But I think it would have a disproportionate impact on our numbers, on those other 37,000 plus stops, based on what we've seen in other places.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Arthur?
Yes, I don't know whether this is exactly a question or not, but Francisco and I are in the police academy school or whatever at this point. And one of in fact, I think it was the last session we went to, not the last session of CAF, but the last session we went to had a thing on drugs and arrests and all that sort of stuff. And one of the questions I had for the presenter was this, and they were talking about, you know, stopping people and so forth, and you know, and who gets stopped. But my question to him was, who do you stop the most, or who gets stopped the most, or who you find evident was on the lower economical class or the higher economical class? And the answer was that more, I think to some extent, was on a lower class, a lower economical class. But he said the high class, the economical class, that is, that they tend to not hide what they do. When they get stopped, their stuff is laid out in the car. So there's going to be a kind of perception of analysis of that whole process, and that we are talking about stopping freedom of what are we?
Consent searches,
to consent, because there won't be a freedom of consent if you're stopping people and they're in a high economical class and their stuff is laid out in the car. So we won't get full data how all this played out in the end. So can I just say that? So to me, it still leads me to believe that the lower economical class, and we know what that means, I won't have to go into that, is more targeted than the higher economical class.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, well, the data shows that if you look at, you know, who's pulled over, we don't have obviously the economic class, but we know the general statistics of certain communities in our community, and you know, African American, Latino folks, while a very diverse community, have higher percentages of folks that are in that class. Again, this is where all these things kind of feed into, well, I think this person is someone who will have something, so let me stop and ask. That's what we're trying to get rid of, because that's not fruitful. It's not a good use of time, and it's, you know, it erodes trust.
All right.
John.
Is there anyone else? John?
Yes, I want to circle back to something that I thought was a good idea that you mentioned, Councilman, about reviewing videos, because it could help in training. One of the questions I had asked when I had taken the Citizens Academy some time ago was that there were serious problems with budgeting for more training, because I really was a proponent of our officers here in our county having more training, because I think that would assist in a lot of this. So I do like the idea of having some of that footage reviewed for training, but is that really feasible based on budgeting? And can there be a proposal to get more budgeting so our officers can have more training so we can help them do their job a little better than what we were seeing with some of this stuff? Because I do understand there's a fear aspect of this as well.
Yeah, well, like I said, the bill I introduced, the Community Informed Police Training Act, added 30 hours training to the after the academy on some of these issues. We had to pay for that. I think it was a good investment. I'm not we obviously do a budgeting process. I'm not opposed to training. There are some people in police reform that think training doesn't do anything. Of course it does something. It's not, you need that and the right people with the right set of incentives, with the right rules of the road and the right training. You need all of that together. The right accountability, right? When things do go wrong, the right incentive structure, and this is something that the police union and I have agreed with over the years. We don't want to create an incentive structure where you're considered a better officer the more stops and tickets you write, right? It depends on what those are for, right? Like, what are you doing? Are we focusing on drunk driving and reckless driving, or things that lead to the number one fatality thing we have fatalities in Montgomery County is crashes. That's more people die every year in this county from reckless driving, drunk driving, people distracted driving. That's the number one. It's not homicide. Homicides are in any given year about half of the number. We normally have anywhere from 35 to 45 people unfortunately die on our roadways. We usually have about half of that in homicides in any given year. So the question is, how are we spending our time most effectively? And I think training is a component of that. So I'm personally open and have demonstrated through the Community Informed Police Training Act to put money into training as well.
Councilman, I've been moderating, but I wanted to get in one quick question.
Yes, sir.
And so this act is critical to pass, and I think to me the only solid objection goes to number 9, and I wanted you to address that. Could the objectives of the Freedom to Leave Act be achieved by amendments to the current policy, right?
Yep.
So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
I appreciate that. I'm glad. I was hoping you guys would ask that. So short answer is, I don't believe as well. No, because one, the current policy still allows for consent searches. Just says you just have to give someone a piece of paper and make them write it down. And again, I talked about how there's multiple studies demonstrate that the power imbalance creates a situation where it is nearly impossible for that consent to be freely given. And so I think that's a reason why it's not, while it is it's better than doing nothing, right? It's better to have at least offer that. It's not the best thing. I think we want to be doing the best thing. And so, for example, last week I was at the PAB, and the FOP and Dr. Stoddard talked about maybe updating the form to make it be more in plain language. But again, we've been doing know your rights and all this stuff for years. You can say, and the form can say it in plain language, but if an officer with a gun is saying, "Hey, can I search your car?" And if you say no, well, sign this, or sign this just so I can search your car, which is the way it's phrased. Sign this so I can search your car. You feel like you got to sign it. And so I don't think that's the best practice in what we've seen from other places. Do I think there's improvement on our process? But both things can be true. We could improve our process and we can pass this bill. I think, because you're still going to have some scenarios, right? Because this is a really important point. If someone's feeling guilty when they're pulled over for making an illegal turn, and they say, "Okay, well, just search my car," right? Like they just offer it up on their own. That is consent. You can get them to sign the form, and you can do it. You didn't ask for that, You know, so you could have complied with our law, and the officer could have not asked, but someone could have offered it because they, you know, for whatever reason. But I think now that being said, if we don't pass this bill, should we update the form and make what we have better? Sure. But I think the best thing to do would be to pass this policy and to, you know, really eliminate the low seizure rate and the disproportionality and the harm it's doing to certain members of our community.
All right, thank you. We have 2 minutes, Eva.
And I'll be quick, Eva, so go ahead.
All right. Yes, thank you so much for, taking the time to talk with us. I want to just underscore for the commission the fact that, folks my age grew up with misgivings around the police, even those of us who do occupy privileged racial identities. I was 10 when Trayvon Martin was killed, 12 for Tamir Rice, 13 for Freddie Gray. So, that's something we grew up with, was national coverage of police violence. And so it is really important to increase trust between young people and the police. We don't feel like we can go to the police for help because we're afraid, even those of us who have privilege. Councilmember Jawando, I know you talked with young people in the community about this bill. What is the most important takeaway that you got from those conversations, and the most important thing you want us as the commission to know?
Oh, that's tough. I appreciate you sharing that perspective, because I do think the opportunity in reform and continuous improvement far outweighs any potential negative press on this. I think if we should be leaning into this, we're trying to do the right thing for our community because we want our officers to spend their time wisely, and we want to treat people fairly, and we want to do the things that lead to that. And that's a recruitment tool right there for people in your generation, people that, like myself when I was younger, that wanted to protect their community. Everyone wants to be safe. No one wants an unsafe community. The question is just how do we achieve it in a way that's fair and equitable? And we want holistic safety, right? We want safety from the systems and structures. We want safety from crime. And that's always been a duality that many of us have had to live with. And I would say that, the more engagement we can have from young people with our systems and structures of government, the more faith they can have in our institutions. That's good for democracy. That's good for public safety. And one of the things that's cited by sometimes by folks who don't want this bill to pass is that out of the traffic stops, there's only been 37,000 traffic stops. There's only 15 complaints, right? To me, that speaks to the problem. Not the, there's no way that, and that none of those were related to consent searches. We had testimony. There's no way that those people who have had experiences didn't feel that something bad had happened sometime. They just, either the process too complicated, they don't feel anything will change, they don't have faith in it. And I think we need, by showing we're proactive with this stuff, and leaning into the data, into the change in policy, I think for young people, that will give them hopefully some hope that we are trying to change the status quo and do things differently and be more equitable about it. And I think that's the message, and to instill that trust and faith in our systems and structures, which is waning in this country, particularly for young people right now.
All right,
Thank you so
Councilman
much.
Jawando, we are so grateful to you tonight for your time and for the detail with which you have shared on the Freedom to Leave Act. And we look forward to supporting the best possible outcomes. To use political expediency, we look forward to supporting the best possible outcomes for the citizens of Montgomery County. So again, thank you for your time, and
Thank you.
You have a good evening.
You too. And I'm assuming you all will be submitting some testimony before the 15th. Is that the goal, or
We'll have that discussion tonight.
Perfect. I'll let you have it. Thank you all for having me. Thank you for your service, and have a good evening.
You do the same.
All right.
All right, so before we move on, do we want to draft a statement for the committee in preparation? Eva?
I have drafted a statement for the committee. I believe I sent it to Logan, who circulated it out to folks. Is that correct, Logan?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, would you be able to put the link in the chat so that folks can take a look?
Let me dig that up. Right?
Thank you so much.
Sorry, my computer's being a little slow, but I will get it in just a second.
I think the question is, has anyone not read it? Has anyone not read it? Okay.
All right, so we have it available in the chat, and so this is thank you, Eva. This is Eva's letter as the chair of the Freedom to Leave Act subcommittee for the ACP. So what is the action? I guess Eva, you can send it as the chair. Do we want to send? Would it have more oomph if we all like signed off on it, right? Does anyone have any reservations? Cherie, excuse me. We can't hear you, Cherie.
I don't have reservations. I do have a question. I appreciate Eva's draft. And I don't have any problems with it. But my question is did the subcommittee vote to approve that statement? Was this a joint subcommittee thing? Because I think it's helpful to know that as we bring it to the full body.
All but one member of the subcommittee spoke out in favor of this letter. I know, Francisco, you had some questions and thoughts, so feel free to share those.
Sure. Thank you, Eva. Now, particularly after the discussion today, I think I'm in support of the bill, and I would like to sign on to that. I would prefer if the letter had more of a discussion on. Well, I think that the letter should be signed by the chair of the ACP, speaking on behalf of the ACP, unless there's someone who feels that we should not support the legislation. But I think it would benefit both the council, the commission, and the community if we included some of the nuances that were discussed today to articulate some of the explanations that we got today about addressing the questions about the possible useful tool on the one hand, and the potential benefits of the legislation that legislation could have on investigative discipline and skills. That's just one example. I think we raised the issue of misconceptions, and my sense was Councilman Jawando said basically pushed it back on us, and I understand that, and I think maybe we can do a little bit in support of that by fleshing out the letter to address some of these issues.
All right, Cherie, is your hand up to come
Yeah,
back in?
sure.
Yes.
So, because I'm, I want to make sure the process is reflective, allows people to, express their, whatever their opinions may be. So, from what I understand, from what we've just determined, it is fair to say that all members of the subcommittee that we asked to study this issue are in support now of that legislation. And Eva has, so we have a letter that that we can send to the council saying that we support the legislation if we vote for that here now. But I wanted to be clear. I also think it's important process-wise for people to be clear what the hearing on the 15th will be, because I think it's a work session. And so I just want, because I know the NAACP testified at the introduction of the bill. So if Susan or Logan or somebody could clarify what the 15th will be, and then we'll know, the appropriate format of whatever it is we need to send.
Yes, thank you. This is a work session at the Public Safety Committee, so it will be a committee work session on the bill. So this would be an opportunity to provide testimony in advance, but there wouldn't be any testimony at this work session.
But at a work session, the whole purpose of there is no testimony per se, but if there are recommendations for, say, amendments or language changes, now's our time to bring it up. Okay. So, I want people to know and understand that, because what I want to do is to now make a motion that the ACP write to the Public Safety Committee expressing our support of the bill.
We have a motion on the floor that the ACP writes a letter to the Public Safety Committee that we support the Freedom to Leave Act. Are there any questions? Do we have a second question?
I would second the motion. Oh,
okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Francisco.
I'm sorry. As I mentioned before, I'm fine with a letter that supports the legislation. I do think that the letter should reflect the discussion that we had today.
So Frank, let me pause. I agree with you. So let's decide that we are going to do a letter, right? And then let's have another vote on what that letter is. Okay. So this essentially is saying that we are supporting the Freedom to Leave Act, right? And we're willing to send a letter. So we have and we'll come back to you, Francisco. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of sending a letter, say aye. Any opposition?
Aye.
All right, so it's unanimous. Now we have a letter. So Eva has started a letter. Frank has mentioned that we've gotten a lot of detail tonight that might give the letter more strength. And so are there any recommendations on how we go about reviewing the letter? Should we put together another subcommittee? And I would suggest that there's a quick turnover. I would love to send it, if today is Monday, by Wednesday, just so that they have it in plenty of time before the meeting. Eva, and then Terry.
absolutely. I have put a suggested piece of language in the chat. If folks want to take a look at that, I can also read that out loud. If anyone has a suggestion for an additional piece of language to add, we could possibly just have those emailed to me, or even just put in the chat. Like, if you suggest, hey, can you put in a sentence on this thing? I will draft it in the chat. Like, I think we have enough time that we could just draft that language and add it now. How do folks feel about that?
Well, Terry, you have a hand. What are your thoughts? And then Frank, I want to hear from you because this was your
Yeah, so
so-
I support actually both Frank and Eva, but I want to be clear that we send detailed information, but not it be too lengthy, right? You lose people if you put too much in it. So that's my suggestion. And I think, getting it out of the starting blocks Wednesday is good. But again, have the details that are appropriate and hit home, but not too much. So that's all.
I agree, Francisco. Francisco, do you go by Frank sometimes? Where am I getting that?
No, and I go by Francisco if you don't mind.
My apologies. All right.
Not at all. Don't worry about it. I agree with Terry that it should be short and brief. I still do think that we can capture some of the nuance that was shared with us today. I think it would be helpful. I would be very happy to send Eva some suggested language first thing in the morning or sometime tomorrow morning. And then we can take it from there.
All right. So question. So after you send, everyone gets whatever verbiage you want to send to Eva. Eva, can you send it to the group?
Yes, absolutely. Francisco, if you send that to me tomorrow morning, I can have a draft letter, like the sort of final draft, back out to the group around noon. And then folks can submit their comments by end of day tomorrow. And hopefully, Chair Bellamy, you can send that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be so.
By
Eva, so when they send you their drafts, if you send me the final draft by Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., I'll fire it off. Logan, do we have letterhead?
Yes, if you send us the letter, we can go ahead and put
Okay.
it on letterhead for you.
All right. Do you need my actual signature?
No, not typically.
Okay. All right, because the church is downtown. I could be there in like 5-10 minutes. So,
Oh.
all right. Okay. All right. So can we move on? We've had a great session with the councilman, and we are going to support the act, the Freedom to Leave Act, and we have a process to get a letter downtown by Wednesday. That's downtown Rockville. All right. So
do we need to move on that process, or are we good? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Do we need to move on that process, or are we good?
Oh, let's make a motion just so that it has some authority. So we need a motion that we're going to get all of any additional edits or comments to Eva as soon as possible. And after that, we will send the letter off Wednesday morning to the Public Safety Office. Do we have a motion?
I will move to incorporate all edits sent to me by tomorrow morning and get a final draft letter to Chair Bellamy by Wednesday morning for sending Wednesday afternoon. That's the motion.
Excellent.
I second.
All right. It's been moved and second that we have a process for the letter. All in favor say, oh, wait, question, Francisco? Or are you saying aye? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Motion carried. So let's go back to the agenda. So next on the agenda is review of the annual report. So we have a draft, Logan. Should we put it up so that we can go through it for any comments?
Yes, if you would like to do that, I'm happy to. Reverend Bellamy, I've made you a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen if you'd like to.
Okay, we can do that. Is everyone okay with that? We have the committee to put the letter together, but we can just go through it. And if there's nothing glaring, then we can be done with that process. All right, so let me just find it here. I have so many tabs because I'm doing too many things. All right. All right, here. Got it. Okay. Oh, wait, is that it? Oh, I know where it is. Open.
Reverend Bellamy, I just want to say that I took the format of previous annual reports and just kind of went by that organizational structure, and a shout out to Francisco and Eva for great edits. Really, I have pretty thick skin. If you don't like something, please say it. Again, I just kind of went what happened in the past and went by that. So
Sure. All right. I'm sure it's thank you for giving us a basis. All right. This is not letting me share.
Oh, I can also go ahead and share my screen if that's easier. You'll just have to tell me when to scroll down.
Right, I have it pulled up, and so I'm not sure why it's doing this. Let me try this. Screen, whiteboard. Ah, here we go. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
All right.
We do have a more up-to-date version. There's a PDF version that I think I just forwarded earlier this evening to bump it in everybody's inbox.
Okay.
That's incorporated some of those edits that it looked like were made at the top there.
All right. Okay, I have it. All right. Can everyone see this? All right. Make it a little bigger.
Oh, there you go.
The Honorable Andrew Friedson, President, Montgomery County, ... I am pleased to submit to you the 2024 annual report of the Advisory Commission on Policing. The report summarizes the work of the ACP addressed since the commencement and appointment of a new session. This includes newly selected commissioners. The appointment report is relevant for time frame of March 11th through June 30th, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to read through it?
Yes.
All right. Are there any questions? All right. Should we take a motion to approve it then?
I just have one small comment. Both towards the end of the report, there are two sections: future of the ACP and conclusion. Both are identical, except for one sentence.
Okay, Francisco, on what page?
This is at the end. Well, at the end of the main body. I'm sorry.
And I think would that happen with version control, Francisco? You know, the old version, the new version. So I agree with you. If we want to just consolidate that into one conclusion or one future work, whatever.
I think my either future of or the conclusion, and include the one with the additional sentence and then get rid of the other one. That's my only suggestion. It's stylistic more than substantive.
We
Okay.
can't have it repeat itself either, right? You know, yeah.
All
I
right,
noticed that too, yeah. But I wasn't sure if that's the final version, Logan, with the
Yes,
repeated
that's correct.
paragraph.
Once you approve
Okay.
it, yeah. But we can make that edit.
Okay.
So just so I understand, Francisco, your suggestion was remove this is the bottom of page 7 and the top of page 8. Remove future of the ACP paragraph and then just keep the conclusion as is.
Yeah, but and I'm sorry, I forget now which one had the extra sentence. But the one with the extra sentence should be the conclusion, and then we can just leave out the part of the future of the ACP.
Mhm.
All right. Are there any other edits or comments? All right. Can we have a motion that we accept the annual report with the stated corrections? And then to move it forward. All right, Francisco, you make the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we move forward the annual report with the stated edit by Francisco. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, we're having all unanimous votes tonight. We're really on one accord. All right, so trying to get back to the agenda. Here we go. Give me just a sec. My Wi-Fi is cooperating. All right. So in August, we will have an in-person meeting. And it will be tentatively in Gaithersburg, and there will also be training. So we'll have an in-person meeting. My apologies, everyone. Everything collapsed on me. Something's not going on. Okay, so we've asked, and this is coming, thank you, Logan. We've asked Captain Percerno to hold the ACP's first training session. And so there'll be an overview for Montgomery County Police Department's training. And so that will be held at the Public Safety Training Academy in Gaithersburg. And again, that will be in our next meeting. What is the second Tuesday in August?
The second Monday?
Excuse me, the second Monday.
And just for clarification, if is this gonna be virtual? I mean, I guess what I'm curious about is how is this a public meeting if we're gonna be at the police headquarters? I mean, what do we have to do, or what has to be done in order to achieve public access in that venue?
All right.
Folks can just walk in, I think.
Logan, do you have any thoughts on this? And then Francisco.
Yeah, we'll advertise it just as a typical public meeting. I believe there should be no issue with allowing the public access to the facility at that time for this meeting. But it is our plan as well to incorporate a hybrid option. We would encourage the commissioners to attend in person if possible, but if any commissioner is unable to attend physically, we should have a hybrid option. So we'll confirm that for you as well.
There is a hybrid option, Mr. Captain Statinsky. We do it all the time with the Citizens Academy, so that will be available.
Thank you, Captain Statinsky.
Francisco, is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
All right, very good. Just taking a straw poll, how many of you think that you could come in person next month? All right, that'll be great. That'll be great. All right, so we look forward to meeting in person next month.
Yeah.
All right. So we're nearing the end of our agenda. Is there any new business? Oh, Christina Delane, I'm getting married, so we'll be virtually likely. Congratulations, Christina.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, that's wonderful news.
You
All right,
can't just bring your spouse to the thing? Don't you think that'd be a nice way to begin your?
Break in that marriage real good, yeah.
So
I'm
Terry,
going to congratulate Christina on her marriage.
Terry, we want her
I'll
marriage to
second that.
last. We want it to last, okay? So there will be no reception next month. Thank you at the meeting. All right.
Thank y'all
Is
so
there-
much.
is there any new business? I feel like we ignited like 3 subcommittees last month. Is there something that we have left off, or is there something that we need to discuss?
Yeah,
Julie,
yeah, what, I'm gonna send out I'm responsible for the subcommittee that helps to plan our public engagement.
okay.
I'm sorry, but I've been doing like 55 other things.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna send out sort of what I think is a sketch to the folks who were on that subcommittee. And they can just reply in, via email. I don't think we really need to meet because, all we have to do is figure out, the venues and the topics and come up with some suggested dates because all dates are not going to be available, right? So, so for instance, there are some of our county centers, our regional service centers, which is where it was suggested that we have these meetings. A few of them are not open on weekends. And so that is at odds with the other suggestion that we move the dates for these public engagement sessions from Monday to times when more folks can be there. So I would just send out a an overview with a sketch, and then people can respond via email, because I think that's really that's really the best and easiest way to do it.
All right. Sherry, do we have to meet at a county-owned facility? Are we able to meet at a church, for example?
There is no rule about whether we have to meet in a county facility. But here's my caveat. Everybody's not going to feel comfortable coming to a church, right? I mean, let's just, it is what it is. And so,
Mount Calvary has a
there's
family
also
life.
a cost aspect.
So Mount Calvary has a family life center, as you may know. We can sit about 600-700 people. And it's like a gym and a cafeteria. It's not a sanctuary. But if just coming to church grounds would be an issue, then but I wanted to offer that because we're right in Lincoln Park. And there would kind of be a built-in crowd. But all right.
I will definitely make sure that that's conveyed in the sketch I send out. I just,
Sure.
but I just know that, some people are just not going to feel comfortable in a church setting, even if it's, but I don't have any problems with it, but, gotta be respectful of everybody.
Absolutely. All right. Terry?
Does Monday count as one, Ms. Branson? Monday, August 12th?
That's up to this body to determine whether Monday should count. It would seem to me that it should, and call me Cherie. But yeah, I mean, that's really, what we agreed to, as I recall, was to have 4 meetings in different places that were designed and geared to public participation. And so if our upcoming August meeting, so to me, that's at least 2 different criteria, right? And since our August meeting is supposed to be a training session, I guess it kind of depends on what the training is, as to whether or not that would meet one of those criteria for public engagement.
Francisco.
I just think to keep it simpler, we should not consider it. I mean, what we should do is dedicate a session to eliciting direct feedback from the community, and we're going to be dealing with training and possibly other items in the agenda. I mean, we could have a meeting where we have certain brief items in the agenda, and then we open it up to the public. But I think it probably for the next one, unless a lot of people show up and we end up having a terrific exchange, I'd say give it a pass, and let's try to set up a specific time to get direct feedback from the community.
Okay. All right, any other business? Any announcements? Christina?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about these types of meetings. So is this something that you see the community turn out for in general when you publicize these types of meetings? And has anyone from their experience had any hindrances with letting the public know, like public awareness? So there's people that are like plugged in to like community things, right? And so those people are going to come and be there. But we're talking about like the people who are affected by this, who may not be plugged in. And how do, like, is there, you know, with all the expertise and everything, like what, you know, are we addressing that to make sure that those people, those folks are heard and aware? You know, they may not be watching the local channel or on a listserv from the council, you know what I mean? So like, are we like putting an intentional effort to ensure that those people in the community are getting this type of notice to attend?
That's a good question.
And frankly, we did this. I know you joined the PAC later in its life. But as you may recall, I'm not sure if we did it when after you joined, but we had a few public sessions. I think maybe 2 in the previous 3 years, and they were not well attended. You know, we had significant problems getting county support in public in publicizing them. So, you know, it is really, you know, while we maybe we'll do better at getting county support this time. But we all have our own networks too, you know. And, you know, it's, you know, it would probably be good once we come up with these dates to develop a flyer and to distribute that through our own networks as well as through Montgomery County's media.
Thank you. Yeah,
All
I think
right.
these meetings happened before my time, but thank you.
I want to say thank you to Mr. Robert Landau. He said that in the chat, the Silver Spring Justice Coalition will help to publicize the meeting. Thank you very much. So yeah, I think if we have something like a flyer, we could we can use our own networks. But I guess we need to take action on who's going to make the flyer. Logan, is there someone in the department who kind of handles that?
Yes, thank you. I was just typing in the chat. The council can also help promote that, whether that's via flyer or, you know, using our public information office will be able to spread the word as well.
All right, so we'll be able. So to the committee, to Cherie, please keep that. Did she leave? There she is. Okay, Cherie.
No, I'm here. I'm just
So please,
feeling a little bushy, so I'm not putting my camera on a lot.
we understand. For the subcommittee, please keep in mind that we can do publicity through the council's mechanisms. All right, Mr. Blair or Arthur's.
I just want to add, once you get the flyer done, one of the nice places in Montgomery County is to put flyers in the library. And a lot of people attend the library in Montgomery County that I've been to anyway. So I just want to throw that in.
And can I add, if we send it out to, we can share it on our social media pages for those of us who do have social media.
Yeah, great ideas.
And I'd be very happy to translate it into Spanish.
Excellent.
That's critical. That's critical. Absolutely. So, let's keep in mind, as soon as we get flyers made, that Francisco, you volunteered to do that. This is such a diverse county. Are there other languages that we need to consider?
Chinese and Vietnamese and maybe Korean.
Mm-hmm,
Also probably French,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
but I feel like Chinese is like a big priority.
Okay.
Spanish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Amharic.
Oh, yep, Amharic too.
Really?
The problem we've had in the past and other things that I've dealt with is that well, put it this way, I think the county has translators. I think the county like pays a translation service. So no offense to Francisco. I just think it would be good for the county to be responsible for how that translation reads, for, a lot of different reasons. They should be responsible for that. So if Logan, if you would be able to check on the availability or what we have to do for county translation services, that would be very helpful.
Yes, definitely.
All right, very good. Any other questions? Any other new business? Any other comments, announcements? So I don't know if you all participate, but August 6th, is that the first Tuesday? I believe it's August 6th, is National Night Out. And so that's the time when the police and the community come together for fun and for fellowship at various sites. It's like kind of like a national thing, but it's very popular here in the county. And there are sites all over the county. If you are okay with coming to a church, Mount Calvary Baptist Church, where I serve as the senior pastor, we host the what's been the last few years the largest turnout. So at 608 North Horners Lane, there's hot dogs, there's all free ice cream, moon bounce if you have kids, and we're outside in the parking lot. So I mean, anyone is welcome, period, to anything that we do. But I mean, we're outside, so hopefully people will feel comfortable. Know that you're welcome to come. And if you do come, let me know so that we can take a selfie or something. All right. All right. Moon bounce for adults. I don't know if we're insured for that, Eva.
And it's not as easy as it looks, Eva. I'm telling you, as an adult, it's a whole different ball game.
Right. And please don't do it in tube socks because I almost broke my neck once. All right. All right. Okay, so then we'll ask for a motion to adjourn if there's nothing else. Mr. Landau, thank you for joining us. Heidi, thank you for joining us. You are always welcome to be a part and to hear our conversation. And Robert, thank you in advance for your support. And Heidi, we hope we can count on you when we do have our public meetings to help us to get the word out as well. All right. What's the date of the event? So National Night Out is August 6th. Tuesday, August 6th. It's always the first Tuesday in August. And again, there are events all around the county. But we're gonna have a moon bounce and free ice cream. So all right. All right. Can I have a motion? Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. And Francisco seconding. He has seconded the motion. He gave a thumbs up. All in favor of adjourning the meeting at 8:11 p.m. say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carried. All right, everyone have a good evening. Please get your comments to Eva concerning the letter for the Freedom to Leave Act. And Eva, I'll look to hear from you. I emailed you all the number that I'm using right now. When I get my phone back, I'll send a text or something or a bat signal and let you know that I'm back on. All right, have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.